In addition to homecoming activities, classes have also been canceled for the remainder of the week.
Now, this is the third straight year violence has rocked Morgan State during homecoming.
As for the investigation, we know police are searching for at least two suspects, and multiple weapons were found on the scene. The 5 victims are all between the ages of 18 and 22. 4 of them are Morgan State University students.
Police believe an argument between 2 groups led to the shooting. The victims were not the intended target. Mayor Brandon Scott expressed sympathy for the victims and their families after the campus lockdown was lifted.
The entire city of Baltimore's heart aches for the Morgan community, for these victims and their families, and for our city as a whole.
As another mass shooting leaves Baltimore residents worried for their safety, they are turning to the mayor for answers. He says gun violence is a national problem. He's calling on the federal government for help.
We have to stop saying not one more. We need action now. There are things that can be done, particularly at the level of Congress, that could help stop the next shooting on a campus.
And we have team coverage of the mass shooting, beginning with Mackenzie Frost.
She pressed the mayor on his comments and why he isn't making the same demands at the state and local level.
Mayor Brandon Scott says this is a problem Congress needs to address, but we're pressing him on why he thinks this time will be different, especially when congressional leaders have failed to enact some of the same legislation he's asking for now. Meanwhile, here at home, some tough on crime legislation proposals have been introduced year after year without support. The scene at Morgan State University Tuesday night is becoming more frequent in communities across the country. And it's why Baltimore City Mayor Brandon Scott says he's looking to lawmakers in Washington to craft policy.
We must address the nationwide proliferation of guns.
But we push the mayor on why congressional leaders are the right people for this crisis. Congress, we just saw, can hardly pass a budget. They just ousted their speaker yesterday. It's chaos on Capitol Hill. Why do you believe that these members in Washington, D.C. can address this problem when they're struggling to do the basic functions of government?
Because it's their job, Mackenzie. The same way that the residents of Baltimore City want me to make sure that the police department is actually out there arresting these individuals.
The mayor says there needs to be more pressure on federal lawmakers to take it seriously when someone picks up a gun and decides to pull the trigger. Mayor Scott calling for significant policy shifts. So what specific legislation are you looking
There's a bunch.
for?
So I can run the whole list down and I'll get Brian to send you more. 1, they should ban ghost guns, period. They should remove the immunity for gun manufacturers, period. They should ban assault rifles and magazines, period.
Why can't you and other state leaders push for legislation at the state level to ensure there are tougher penalties for people who shoot and kill other people?
I think that when you look at Maryland's laws around guns and gun violence, we have some of the best in the country, Mackenzie. The guns are coming in from other places, other states. That is why this is a national issue. It's a both and, Mackenzie, not an either or.
But there have been attempts locally to go after trigger pullers. Year after year, Republicans backing plans calling for tougher penalties, like the Violent Firearms Offender Act or the Repeat Violent Offender Act. Both plans implementing mandatory minimum sentences for people who use guns in their crimes. With a Democratic supermajority in Annapolis, those plans repeatedly failing to gain enough support to pass. Now, more victims forever scarred by bullets flying. According to the Gun Violence Archive, Morgan State University is the 9th mass shooting in Baltimore City this year, and the leader of Baltimore looking to leaders in Washington for answers. And remember, those same crime plans that the Republicans have backed calling for tougher penalties, Mayor Brandon Scott and other leaders from Baltimore City didn't support it. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
During his news conference last night, the mayor mentioned shootings are down overall, but violence in Baltimore is grabbing the national spotlight. First, it was the Brooklyn day mass shooting that happened in July. Police admitted they made mistakes in the days before and after the shooting. And last week, city police were criticized for their handling of Jason Billingsley's case. He's the man accused of murdering tech CEO Pablo LaPere and committing a rape and arson days earlier. Acting City Police Commissioner new City Police Commissioner Richard Worley said the public wasn't notified of the brutal attack because he didn't want to speak poorly about the victims. Now Worley is walking that back.
The comments that I made were victim blaming, and I tell you I misspoke. The last thing I ever want to do is blame a victim. No victim is ever at fault for a crime committed against them, especially this individual. This individual committed a heinous act, and I apologize to the victims everywhere if I offended them, because that's exactly the opposite of what I want to do.
Well, the past few weeks alone have seen a number of high-profile crimes. In August, 57-year-old Daryl Benner was shot and killed in Canton while trying to go after thieves who had carjacked his family member. Last month, a 12-year-old was shot while attending a Dunbar High School football game. A 14-year-old was charged in that shooting. Last week, a deadly shooting near Gilmore Elementary School took the life of 15-year-old Rashid Maxwell. And on Thursday, an off-duty Howard County police officer, Ryan Demby, was shot and killed in Federal Hill after an argument at a bar. Fox 45 News spoke with Euripsy Morgan on Fox 45 News tonight at 5. She says despite the number of shootings and murders being down, residents still don't feel safe.
People are not feeling safer. And let's remember that the numbers are down from last year, not from previous years. And in addition, we are seeing historically high numbers of young people, teenagers, who are being shot and killed. And again, Morgan State University is a college campus. You have young people on a campus, and they are the ones who are being targeted more highly, particularly this year. There's such an increase in violence among young people. And no, we've talked to so many residents. We're going through all the 14 councilmanic districts. We're about halfway through, and I can tell you that residents do not feel safe, and they don't feel safe for themselves, and they don't feel safe for the young people in their care.
That brings us to our question of the day. Do you trust Mayor Scott to keep your community safe? So far, 99% of those who voted say no. You can head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in. Fox 45 News spoke with Maryland's only Republican Congressman Andy Harris hours before the shooting at Morgan State University. He addressed the crime crisis in Baltimore City. Harris says state lawmakers and Governor Wes Moore need to do more to make Maryland communities safer. He says lawmakers should listen to police, parents, and prosecutors who are calling for juvenile justice laws to change.
People are afraid to go into the city. That's the bottom line. We should never be afraid as a citizen to go anywhere. We are. The fact of the matter is that the polling shows that people want strict enforcement of the law for juvenile crimes, period. The bottom line is it's time to restore the rule of law. That's what we're hearing all over the place.
Congressman Harris references a new Gonzales poll showing juvenile crime is a priority for many Marylanders. 59% support stricter laws for juvenile offenders. The poll shows Democrats appear to be split on the laws according to race. 62% of black Democrats say they support stricter juvenile crime laws, while 62% of white Democrats support a more lenient approach. Pollster Patrick Gonzalez says that split could be a warning sign for Democrats and Governor Wes Moore.
Did that surprise you?
It did, because whenever you see black Democrats aligning more with the Republican Party than with their own base, that's problematic.
When we have this poll showing 62% of black Democrats are aligned with stricter laws, what does that mean for the Democratic Party come January?
Well, that's going to be a challenge. Get a sense. Listen to each of your members. Mm-hmm. Listen hard. Don't go along as many times you do where everybody's corralled and everybody just kind of goes along to get along. Listen to what they're saying on the important stuff.
Fox 45 News sent questions about the poll to Governor Moore, including if he agrees with those black Democrats who want to hold juvenile offenders accountable. We also asked if the governor plans on introducing legislation to roll back juvenile justice reforms that make it difficult to prosecute young offenders. Governor Moore's office responded in a statement saying, quote, the Moore-Millard administration is committed to looking at all options with state legislature to make Maryland's communities safer. But the governor did not directly answer our questions.
Well, the Morgan State shooting sparking more criticism of another law, the Gun Safety Act, otherwise known as Senate Bill 1. That law took effect on Sunday, and while a judge did block some parts of it, it is still preventing legal gun owners from bringing their weapons to many public places, including schools. Fox 45's Vincent Hill joins us live now with why one expert says the law needs to change a bit. Vincent?
Yeah, Mary, so imagine this. You own a gun legally, and shots ring out at a campus. But according to Senate Bill 1, you can't protect yourself or others because you could face jail time.
Gunshots on the Morgan State campus.
It was just like
a ton of shots in a row, and then it stopped, and then more shots in a row, and then people started running.
Leaving 5 people injured in Baltimore's 11th mass shooting of the year.
When is enough going to be enough?
The shooting happening just 2 days after Senate Bill 1, which prevents legal gun owners from carrying within 100 feet of a school, went into effect.
We know that there was at least more than one person with a weapon. The problem is the ballistics has to tell us how many guns there were that were shot.
Sparking that old argument that this new law only affects legal gun owners.
Bad guys don't care if they're within 100 feet of the building.
Former Assistant Police Chief Curtis Clemens says the shooting at Morgan State is a prime example.
If we had law-abiding citizens, we could have taken out the shooter and brought this to a stop very quickly.
And while no arrests have been made in the Morgan State shooting, Clemens pointing to a huge problem with Senate Bill 1.
By being a lawfully armed citizen, you are still facing criminal charges and saving lives. And that, I think, is the crux of the problem.
A problem he says is one criminals are not concerned with.
The typical criminal element that is out there, they don't care about this law. They're going to get a gun off the street, and then they're going to use it on the people in the community who are left vulnerable and unable to protect themselves.
Meanwhile, Clemens says Senate Bill 1 needs to go back to the drawing board.
I think the Senate needs to go back, take a look at this law, tweak it, and make it better for the lawfully permitted citizen out here who wants to carry a gun lawfully and is trying to do things the right way.
And right now, BPD says they're looking for possibly multiple shooters from this shooting here last night. At Morgan State, Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.